When we talk about genetic testing, we're talking about two types of testing on the embryo. One is PGT-A, and the other one is PGT-M, roughly. There's another category called PGT-SR, which is a hybrid sort of the two, but let's just focus on these two. PGT-A is testing the amount of chromosomes in an embryo. We all have 46 chromosomes, 23 from mum, 23 from dad. And unfortunately, because human reproduction is far from perfect, the rate of creating an embryo having abnormal numbers of chromosome in it is actually quite high. And that's nobody's fault, and that is even if your own chromosomes are completely normal. So PGT-A is a process where we don't need to do any kind of pre-treatment testing or workup apart from your own chromosomes. And then we take you through an IVF process, and then we create embryos. Those embryos need to be grown at least to day 5, day 6, and they then will be biopsied from the bit that will ultimately become the placenta, not the bit that will become the baby. A couple of things about biopsies. Not all embryos will be suitable for biopsy. That does not mean that embryo is not suitable for use untested. We are very fussy with what embryos we biopsy, and that's purely because we want to maintain the maximum survival rate for our biopsied embryos, which is sitting around over 98%, which is very good. So we would never force biopsy an embryo in this setting. So just because an embryo is not suitable for biopsy doesn't mean it's not suitable to use. I think that's really important to sort of emphasize. Once we've done the biopsy, the result is done from a test that is what we call off the shelf. So literally we use a supplier that we run the test, and we don't need to make any modification to the test. It comes out of the box and we can run it. So therefore the time for that is about 2 weeks. Now we can't culture embryos in a lab for 2 weeks. We need to freeze them. So the embryos are biopsied and frozen, and then 2 to 3 weeks later the results of the biopsy comes back, and then we will then know which embryos are suitable for use and which embryos are not suitable for use, and we will then transfer back a frozen embryo which has at least the same success rates as a fresh embryo, if not a little bit higher. So that is PGT-A. That is looking for abnormal numbers of chromosomes in embryos. The other process is PGT-M. M stands for monogenic, and this is a longer process. This is a longer process because it looks at one specific gene. Now, the difference between chromosomes and genes is that each chromosome contains lots and lots and lots of genes, like thousands of genes. So we are looking at a much more granular set of investigations. We're looking at this in higher detail, and therefore it takes us more time. Crucially, when we do PGT-M, that is looking for a single gene defect like cystic fibrosis, spinal muscular atrophy, we need to know which gene we're looking for. We cannot just screen every single gene. It's impossible for the time being. So we need to know what gene we're looking for. We need to do what we call a workup. So that is, there is no off-the-shelf test that we can use that we can immediately, without changing it somehow, use it straight away. So each time we do PGT-M, we create a test that is unique for that person sitting in front of us who is needing the test. That test, once it's created, cannot be used in another person. Now, what we can do is we can take an existing test kit and modify it so that it becomes suitable for that one couple. Or, if that's not possible, we have to create a test from scratch. It's completely bespoke. So those processes will take a bit of time, and that workup process will take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. Just be prepared for that. We generally don't recommend starting IVF before we have the test ready, because there is a small possibility that we may get to biopsy and the test is either not ready or the test is actually not available. We can't create the test. So we do recommend this as very much a sequential process. So we do workup, creation of test. Once they say, yes, we have the test, we start IVF. The rest of the process is really the same as PGTA. So that is, we grow the embryos, do the biopsy, and then freeze the embryos. The testing will take instead of 2 to 3 weeks, as with chromosomes, it will take 3 to 4 weeks. So a little bit longer, and then we transfer a frozen embryo back. We can at the same time test for chromosomes as well as single genes. So we can actually do 2 types of testing in the one go if that's what's desired. So that is hopefully just an overview of what the genetic testing process is like.